hit 4 inside the park home runs in one game.
They shifted to Cy Williams before they shifted to Ted Williams.
Grover Cleveland Alexander. Didn't Ronald Reagan fight him?
Chuck Klein, he could do it all.
Now, here's the set. And the set, delivering. Swinging a fly, very, very deep toward left field. Moving back, Abram, way, way back. He can't get it. It's a home run. A home run for Dick Sisler.
Geez, Dick Sisler. That's the greatest fill I ever had in baseball.
You could always count on Robin Roberts.
Whitey Ashburn really could pick it in center field.
No question, the best hitter I ever saw, Richie Allen.
1964, bunning and short. Bunning and short.
That's a home run for Schmidt. He has hit 4 straight.
Before it's over, Schmidt's going to break every offensive record in the game. I think Lefty won about half the Phillies games one year, didn't he?
I used to hate Pete Rose until he played for us.
You never know what's going to happen when the Tugger's on the mound.
Centennial, over 100 years of Philadelphia Phillies baseball, featuring the voices of Byram Sam, John Facenda, and yours truly, Harry Callis. With a special introduction by James Michener.
Hello, I'm James Michener, and I'm happy to join you in a toast to those men in the red pinstripe suits. I've been a Phillies fan for most of this century. And lest we be accused of revising history, it must be said that the Phillies' past is largely one of disappointment. 24 times our heroes have finished last. They still hold the major league mark of 23 straight losses, and there was that nightmare of 1964, the year we couldn't possibly lose, but did. But with it all, the Phillies have given us so many fond memories. And every summer we cling to the hope that maybe, just maybe, this will be our year. For even with all the changes in the game, Phillies baseball still stands as a kind of indestructible pillar, holding together generations of fans. So let's drift back now to the pages of our granddad's scrapbooks, to the daguerreotypes of a budding romance between a city and its team.
From Worcester, Mass. they came. A franchise awarded to 2 men named Rogers and Reach became our beloved Phillies. The 1883 Phils had the league's worst record, but when Harry Wright took over, they soon became contenders. In 1887, those dashing young men climbed to second place in their splendid new palace, the Philadelphia Ballpark. Billy Hamilton set running records they chased for years, and Sam Thompson set a slugging standard, bringing our town its first home run crown. Catcher Jack Clements wore his mitt on the wrong hand, or no hand at all. But best of all was Ed Delahanty, one of 5 big league brothers who once hit 4 inside the park homers in a single game. Nat Lajoie joined Easy Ed in the Hall of Fame and helped keep the Phils respectable. But the 90s were not gay times for all, and the game's first player revolt led to the sacking of manager George Stallings. The new boss was Billy Schätzlein, and the turn-of-the-century Phillies were our winningest until the bicentennial. Still, no pennants flew our way, and Philly fans grew accustomed to near misses. We learned to find solace in our stars' achievements, like Gavy Kravis' 6 home run titles, and to find joy in the second division. But then along came Alex, wondrous Grover Cleveland Alexander, who for the purchase price of $750 led the franchise to its first pennant in 1915. That fleeting success would stand alone for 35 years, but Alex carried on as one of the age's most fascinating figures. Even Hollywood was struck by his story, and the lead role was landed by an ambitious actor from California.
For the Philadelphia Nationals, Alexander pitching.
While the real Alex seldom needed relief, Mr. Reagan had Doris Day on hand to help make the calls. The great right-hander won 95 games in 3 years, including the Phillies' first World Series victory. But the Phils fell in 5 to the Red Sox, and it was all downhill from there. While Alex struggled with his own problems, the Phils tumbled to the bottom of the standings, and the brief honeymoon was over. Still, the snapshots of the 20s show the Phillies' knack for having a roaring good time no matter what. Every team in the league leaped over our heroes as the Phils finished last 7 times in a decade. But oh, what a ball they had on a summer day in 22, losing the highest scoring game in big league history. In the first year of the lively ball, the Phils hoisted themselves to the top of the league in home runs. And in that charming bandbox known as Baker Bowl, Cy Williams captured 3 homer crowns in the 20s. But hats must go off to the fans, who stayed with a team that landed in the second division 14 straight seasons. 8 managers tried and failed to keep the Phillies from becoming the laughing stock of baseball. But the expression changed when it came to a former steel mill worker named Charles Herbert Klein. The Phillies' greatest left-handed hitter won a Triple Crown and an MVP award in lifting the Phillies to the dizzying heights of 4th place. The Phils were on the move now, 7 blocks west to Shy Park, where they began a new era on Independence Day, 1938. But while more fans were attracted to their spacious new home at 21st and Lehigh, the war years were the Phillies' most disheartening of all. The depleted team suffered 5 straight last-place finishes with more than 100 losses each time, while the baseball world lost its best players to the armed forces. But when our boys returned home at war's end, interest in baseball reached a new zenith. And even though fans could now watch the game in the comfort of their own homes, there was still nothing like going to the ballpark, as we were reminded by some old friends.
This is Bob. Take me out to the ball game Hope, training here under the Klieg lights and wishing I were getting the sun in the bleachers in the field box. You know, I love baseball games. It's the only place I can get my girl to kiss me. She's got to kiss me. I only buy 1 hot dog.
And a hot dog at the game beats roast beef at the Ritz. You see nice people, you yell like crazy for your guys. Good for your lungs. Gives you a lift and nobody calls the cops. Pretty girls, lots of them. But none any prettier than Baby. Are you listening, Baby?
But Ethel. Oh, wait a minute, honey bunch. Yeah, I know I was going to see you downtown, but I got to meet Ricky. Well, he's home. All right, I might as well tell you the truth. I'm going to the ball game. You want to go too? Oh, boy.
Hi, everybody. This is By Sam speaking to you from Clearwater, Florida. I'm glad you could join us for the start of this 1950 season, because this year it looks like we have a real contender.
Fighting Phils. It's a tough, tough team to beat. They're out to win every day. Every victory is sweet.
We know them as the Whiz Kids, and we love them like matinee idols. The average age is only 26, but the director is a former science prof named Eddie Sawyer, who works wonders with his cast. Leading off is Eddie Waitkus, a dazzling first baseman who plays alongside Mike Goliath, our clutch-hitting second baseman. Fran Hamner is a good field, good hit shortstop. And rounding out the infield is Willie Jones, who we all know as Puddinhead. Left fielder Dick Sisler is what you might call our darling of destiny. And in center, there's Whitey Ashburn, who always seems to get on base for cleanup hitter Dale Lennox. Behind the plate is durable Andy Simmons, who has the delightful task of handling 20-game winner Robin Roberts and hard-throwing lefty Kurt Simmons. Surprising rookie Bob Miller has chipped in with 11 big wins, and of course there's our one-man bullpen, Jim Constanti. As the city roars, the Whiz Kids fight their way to the top.
The fight, Phil.
35 years after the Phillies' one and only pennant, the Whiz Kids moved to the top of the National League race, largely on cunning and daring. And with only 9 days left, their lead was a seemingly safe 7 games. But National Guard duty claimed 17-game winner Kurt Simmons, and with injuries to starters Miller and Church, Simmons listened as the Phils' lead melted away. In hot pursuit were the Brooklyn Dodgers, and with their lead down to 1 game, the Phils turned to Robin Roberts in the season's finale.
It's the 6th inning, and Roberts pitches to Pee Wee Reese, who drives one deep to right. It's a fluke home run, and the game is tied at 1. In the 9th inning, the Dodgers put the potential winning run on second base.
Line drive to center field. Ashburn races into the ball. Here comes the throw from center field. He is out.
Richie Ashburn's throw saves the game for the Phils, and it's on to the 10th, where Dick Sisler faces Don Newcomb with 2 men on.
Swinging a fly very, very deep toward left field. Moving back, Abram, way, way back. He can't get it. It's a home run. A home run for Dick Sisler.
To Phillies fans, that was the shot heard round the world, and Sisler's homer gave the visitors a 4-1 lead. When Robbie retired the Dodgers in order, the Whiz Kids had won it. To the shock of the baseball world, the Philadelphia Phillies were the champions of the National League. The long overdue celebration was short-lived, however, for 3 days later, the Yankees came to Shibe Park to begin the World Series.
In a stunning move, Eddie Sawyer tabbed reliever Jim Constanti to start Game 1. The league's MVP hadn't started a game all year. But with a tired pitching staff, the Phils were relying on their palm-balling whiz to set down the Bronx Bombers. A sacrifice fly produces the only run off Constanti, but the Phils can manage only 2 hits off Vic Raschi and lose the opener 1-0. In Game 2, Joe DiMaggio steps up in the 10th inning against Robin Roberts and breaks up a 1-1 pitching duel with a towering drive to left. DiMaggio's homer gives the Yanks a 2-1 win, and as the series moves to Yankee Stadium, the Phils trail 2-0. The third game turns out to be the biggest heartbreaker of all. The Phillies squander a 1-run lead with some sloppy fielding, and the 3-2 loss leaves the Philly fans facing a sweep. The next day, rookie Whitey Ford gets help from a 6th inning homer by Yogi Berra to end any hope of the Whiz Kids' comeback. More than 68,000 celebrate the Yanks' second straight World Series crown, while the losers are left to wonder when they'll get this close again.
That Phillies team never fulfilled its promise, but to our city's heroes was added a whole new batch of splendid performers, like old reliable Robin Roberts, a fiery competitor who won 20 or more games 6 straight seasons, even after the Whiz Kids became the Was Kids. The future Hall of Famer was backed by a swift Nebraskan named Richie Ashburn, whose exuberant play made him #1 in the hearts of Phillies fans. Whitey was just a good old-fashioned hitter, as his .308 lifetime average attests. He has the most hits in the team's history, and he's the only modern-day Phil to win 2 batting crowns. Ashburn's speed was complemented by the power of Del Ennis, one of only 2 Phils to drive in more than 1,000 runs. But as the Whiz Kids grew up and went their own separate ways, General Manager John Quinn was left to reassemble the pieces, and new pilot Gene Mark was given the task of digging the Phils out of the basement. But first, things only got worse, to the tune of a big league record 23 straight losses in 1961. Still, Shibe Park gave fans a place to express themselves, and a whole new language was born. For there are no better name callers than Phillies fans.
People never call for Philadelphia by its proper name. Instead, they call it Philly, and the ball club is the same. For a century, nothing's been comicer than a Philly nomicker. Nicknames are the Philly rule, Schoolboy Row and Lefty O'Doul. Francisco Herrera, I wonder who called you Pancho. Harry Lowry, did somebody call you Peanuts just for kicks? And whoever called you Cookie? Octavio Rojas, Sylvester Donnelly, whoever named you Flicks? Whoever thought up Chief Bender, Beauty Bancroft, and downtown Ollie Brown? Don't call me Richie, was it something that you said? And Bill Nicholson, I bet you wish they call you anything else but Swish. Willie Jones, whoever named you Woodhead. Now Calvin Coolidge, Julius Caesar, Tuskahoma McClish is just about the finest name a boy could ever wish for. It's a name with class, panache and luster. I wonder who's responsible for calling him Buster. Charlie Hustle brings the crowd to its feet, but a rose by any other name would play as sweet. It seems each Philly's mother's son must have an on the back. Jimmy Double X Fox, Tug McGraw, or Harry the Hat, you get a nickname every which way you turn. Dr. Strangelove, Whitey Ashburn, Bacon McBride, Greg the Bull Luzinski, Little Poison Bubba Church of Bo Bolinsky, Granny, Smokey, Turk, and Rip Band. Just like I said, Willie Jones, whoever named you Pudd'nhead.
It's Father's Day at Shea Stadium, and history is in the making. The Phillies' Jim Bunning is just 3 outs away from pitching the National League's first perfect game in 84 years. Farmer Phil Charlie Smith leads off in the ninth. It's a high pop foul playable by shortstop Bobby Wine. That's 1 out. Bunning looks in against pinch hitter George Altman. And he struck him out. Jim Bunning is just 1 out away from a perfect game. He's retired 26 straight, and the only man left is John Stevenson. He struck him out. Jim Bunning has pitched a perfect game.
In the summer of '64, everything seemed perfect for the Phillies. For more than 4 months, first place belonged to Gene Mark's men, and their relentless drive to the pennant was led by a 22-year-old rookie whom they called Richie Allen, the best young player to come into the National League in years. Though he made 41 errors at third base and led the league in strikeouts, Allen was an awesome talent with boundless potential. But the Phillies' top long ball threat was left-hander Johnny Callison, who won the '64 All-Star game with a shocking 2-on, 2-out homer in the bottom of the ninth. It seemed there was simply no denying this team. With just a dozen games to play, the Phils held a cozy 6.5 game lead, and the champagne was on ice. But the next sound we heard was a thunderous crash, the Phillies embarked on a 10-game losing streak that wiped away their lead and still stands as one of the greatest collapses in baseball history.
It's almost incredible. Here was a club which 10 days ago had our Cardinal Club in the dark recesses, about 6.5 games. But there it is, and then they walked off the field night before last after a defeat of 4-2. I don't think I've ever seen a group of able-bodied men, 30 of them I'll say, walk off the field a sadder spectacle.
We'd put our hopes in these men and came away with a shattered dream. All that remained were the sounds of cheers gone sour.
I still remember echoes of November.
This recording by Dick Allen summed up the end of an era. Connie Mack Stadium was demolished, and it was time to begin erasing our bitter disappointment. With the dawn of a new decade, the Phillies' top brass presided over a construction team that was giving its baseball team a palatial new home. It would be called Veterans Stadium, and when completed, it would seat more than 50,000 comfortably and give a new dimension to a day at the ballpark. But it was outside their new fortress in 1971 that one Philly added an uncommon luster to the uniform. Pitcher Rick Wise simply commandeered a night in Cincinnati, belting 2 home runs, then moving to within one very tough out of pitching, a no-hitter.
Rose, as we've mentioned, one of the game's feared hitters. George Foster due to hit next. Here's the 3-2 pitch. Swing a line drive, he did it! Vukovic made the grab, Wise has done it! A no-hit, no-run game. Rose with a line drive to Vukovic, it's all over. Rick Wise has just pitched a no-hitter.
Right in the thick of that night to remember was our new friend Harry Callis, who brought us the good news and the bad.
The bad news is that the Phillies have traded Rick Wise. The good news, we got Steve Carlton in return.
The trade was a blessing in disguise is what it turned out to be. I'm extremely happy to be in Philadelphia. I wouldn't want it any other way now.
At first, Phillies fans didn't agree, for Rick Wise had been the team's ace. But as Carlton notched one record after another in a remarkable 1972 season, the Phil's new lefty became the darling of us all. Carlton accounted for 27 of the Phil's 59 wins, including 15 straight victories. He became the first Phillies pitcher ever to win the Cy Young Award. And Steve Carlton's dazzling one-man show sent a message to his hapless last-place teammates. In 1972, Ruly Carpenter became the big league's youngest club president, and the Phillies' new GM was Paul Owens. The new regime entrusted its team to Danny Ozark, who after 31 years in Dodger blue was starting out in the red. The last-place Phillies, it seemed, needed a return to the fundamentals of baseball.
And I also told the guys I don't want any tennis, basketball, or football.
But no sport was off limits to Bill Giles, the Phillies' master showman, who brought the stuntmen to Betts Stadium. Hijinks notwithstanding, the best news came from down below, where there were finally signs of life. Larry Boa, budding all-star shortstop, was joined by second baseman Dave Cash, a scrappy performer who inspired his teammates to say, "Yes, we can."
I know we can make it. I know that we can. I know darn well we can work it out. Yes, we can, yes, we can, and why can't we? If we want to get together, we can work it out. I know we can make it. I know that we can.
'74 Phils had the spirit of the Whiz Kids, and after finishing a strong third, they had made believers of themselves and gave some real meaning to that old "wait till next year" refrain. After waiting more than a quarter century, the Phils finally developed the look of champions. To celebrate the bicentennial, the Phillies won 101 games, the most in franchise history. They matched that total in '77 and brought 3 straight division titles to town with an unforgettable cast. Introducing the best player in baseball, Michael Jack Schmidt. The decade's most dominant pitcher, lefty Steve Carlton. Greg Luzinski, the man we called the Bull. Tug McGraw, our screwball specialist. The Secretary of Defense, Gary Maddox. Fake McBride, our perpetual offensive machine. Larry Boa, the Phillies' little big man. Dave Cash, who taught the Phillies how to win. And Bob Boone, who simply held up the fort. The honors went to artful right-hander Jim Lombard, whose 4-hitter in Montreal brought out the first clinching party. The next year, the Phils put together a 13-game winning streak, and the good times continued to roll. Then in '78, the Phils knocked out the Pirates on the season's next to last day with a come-from-behind 10-8 win. The National League East belonged to the Phillies, and 3 straight Septembers they celebrated first-place finishes, while more than 7.5 million fans poured into the vet to toast their champions. But come the October playoffs, the tears of joy were replaced by the cries of grown men whose hopes had gone up in smoke. While the spirits of Phillies fans have so often been deflated, there is one larger-than-life character you can't keep down for long. The one and only Philly fanatic. Maddox, the fanatic, was wondering with the rest of us what it would take to bring a World Series to the vet. Phillies management tried a four-letter response from Cincinnati. But even for Pete's sake, the Phils could finish no better than fourth in 1979, and it was left for new manager Dallas Green to shake things up. Despite their huge talents, the Phillies were going nowhere, and Green set out to make himself heard above the din of defeat. It was decided that Dallas Green's style of communication was just what the Phillies needed. So when the team convened the following spring, it was still the gospel according to Green being preached.
It all starts right here. If we get in a habit now, when we make contact, to bust our ass out of home plate and run the first, even if we're out, I guarantee you it gets contagious, it makes the defensive team edgy, and it sets a pattern for the Phillies of 1980.
Somewhere between Clearwater and Montreal, the 1980 Phillies found those missing intangibles.
It's to Boone. Back through the middle, base hit. Here's Big McBride being waved around. Here's the throw. It's going to be way off target. Boone goes into second. Phillies have tied the game.
In this showdown with the Expos for the division crown, the Phillies became the Men of October.
Pitch to Schmidt. Long drive to left field. He buried it. He buried it way back. Out of here. Home run. Mike Schmidt puts the Phillies up 6-4. Oh, what a drive by Schmidt. Unbelievable.
Having come from 6 games back in August, this irrepressible team now put its hopes for a crown in the hands of Tug McGraw. Though they'd been here before, the feeling persisted that maybe this time the Phillies had only just begun. The Houston Astros were the playoff opponents, and more than 65,000 jammed Vet Stadium to be a part of the Phillies' first postseason win at home in 65 years.
3-2 pitch. Swing and a long drive. There she goes. Way out of here. Home run. Greg Blusinski.
The Bull Blast led the Phils to a 3-1 win in the opener. But Bake McBride's indecision cost the Phils a chance to win Game 2, and the Astros evened the series in 10 innings. In the Astrodome, the Phils were shut out in Game 3, then found themselves down 2 runs in just 2 innings from being sent home.
Way to Rose, bouncing ball right side. It has eyes. It goes through. Being waved around is the lead man, Gross. He's going to score. Play to third, not in time. Play to second, not in time. Runners second and third. Phillies trail the game 2-1. Here's the 3-2 pitch. Swinging a bouncing ball back the middle. It's gloved by Morgan. No throw. Everybody safe. Tie ball game. Ready to go. At the belt. The 1-2 pitch to Trio. Punch shot right field being charged. And that ball is caught. The runners are tagging. Here's the throw to the plate. Rose scores.
In the bottom of the ninth, the pesky Astros tied it, and the third straight heart-stopping game was going into extra innings. Never before or since has a playoff series produced such relentless drama.
A 1-0 pitch. Driven to left field. Hard hit ball down into the corner. That ball one hops against the fence. Here comes Pete Rose digging around third. He's going to keep right on going. Here's the play at the plate. He scores!
The Phillies were playing like the great intimidators now. And with the series squared away, there was a growing feeling of destiny. But the decisive 5th game was enough to test even the staunchest believers, and it took a 5-run 8th-inning rally to revive the Phils.
Base hit! Here comes Avalos to score!
The double by Manny Trio produced a 2-run lead, but still the Astros fought their way back yet again. The Phils were forced to answer back, and in the 10th, doubles by Unser and Maddox provided an 8-7 lead that would stand forever.
Winds up by Ruthless. The 3-2 pitch. Here's a punch shot to center field. Maddox
racing over. He catches the ball. Phillies win the pennant. The Phillies have won the pennant. The Phillies win the ball game 8-7. They go to the World Series for the first time in 30 years.
Nearly 66,000 fanatics stormed into Vet Stadium for the start of the 1980 World Series between the Phillies and the Royals, with both teams being led by first-year generals. For the sixth straight time in this tumultuous postseason, the Phils fell behind, but the home team was standing its ground. A 4-run Royals lead was whittled away, and Bake McBride represented the go-ahead run. The 7-6 triumph was 65 years in coming, but Mike Schmidt showed his impatience for win number 2. The team that wouldn't die arose again with a 4-run eighth and took a commanding 2-game lead on to Kansas City. Pinch hitter Del Unser exemplified the Phils' resourcefulness, and after 2 straight losses to the Royals, a stirring 9th-inning rally brought the Phillies back from the brink of disaster to the threshold of the elusive crown. Game 6 was a showcase for Steve Carlton, who won 2 and racked up 17 World Series strikeouts. Carlton entrusted a 4-1 lead to Tug McGraw, and in the 9th, the Phillies gave unassailable proof that they weren't going to let this one slip away. Pete Rose provided the most telling image of the series, and Tug McGraw stared down the last out. At 11:29 on October 21st, the 1980 Phillies became the champions of baseball, and the ghosts of Phillies past were finally laid to rest.
After so many years, how did it finally happen? What set this Phillies team apart and allowed them to capture a flag, then a World Series when so many before them had failed? Against the Royals, it was apparent that this team believed in itself and just wouldn't accept losing. Instead of wilting, these Phillies welcomed the challenge and simply thrived on pressure.
You have to learn to pace yourself. Pressure. You're just like everybody else. Pressure. You've only had to run so far, so good. But you will come to a place where the only thing you feel are loaded guns in your face, and you'll have to deal with pressure. Don't ask for help, you're all alone. Pressure. You'll have to answer to your own. Pressure. I'm sure you'll have some cosmic rationale. But here you are in the night, 2 men out and 3 men on nowhere to look but inside, where we all respond to pressure.
From the highest of highs to an unthinkable low as hotels replaced stadiums and lawyers supplanted players in a summer without baseball. The strike season of '81 featured a unique playoff between the defending champs and the upstart Expos, and a dramatic 10th-inning homer by George Vukovich sent the 2 teams into a sudden death finale for the division crown. But there would be no encore for the '81 Phils, and a disappointing last game loss to Montreal marked the end of an era. Rudy Carpenter, the Phillies' 41-year-old president, closed the book on his family's 38 years of team ownership, and a group of investors led by William Yale Giles took over as the team approached its Centennial celebration. The Phillies were hungry to make this party memorable, and the icing on the cake would be another title. In keeping with the Centennial theme, the Phils took on a more mature look in '83, sporting an average age of 33. And with a nod to their ancestors of 30 years before, the '83 Phillies were affectionately called the Wheeze Kids.
The Wheeze Kids of 1983, I think, are quite fitting with the 100th anniversary that the Phillies are about to enter. It's also quite fitting that the town of Philadelphia is 301 years old this year, and our starting lineup is 301 years old.
To keep Pete Rose feeling young, management brought in some old friends. Second baseman Joe Morgan came from San Francisco, and from Boston came another 40-year-old. The Phillies' team colors, it seemed, were now red, white, and gray.
A bunch of old guys, so to speak. That's a big theme of our team this year, that everybody's too old to win.
But the few young faces found the chemistry just right, and it all added up to a most unlikely success story. Everyone filled their roles splendidly, and some even went beyond the call of duty. Steve Carl notched his 300th career win, and rookie Charles Hudson got his first. The cheers were led by Al Holland, the Phillies' own Mr. T, who became the league's top-rated reliever. The A-team's star billing was shared by John Denny, who in his first full season with the Phillies simply became the best in the business. His 19 wins led the league, and John Denny walked off with the 1983 Cy Young Award. Looking back at this colorful cast of characters, it's hard to recall that most of the league had written off the Wheeze Kids.
Philadelphia, veteran bunch, but I don't really foresee them being a team to beat. So right now, I'd probably be St. Louis.
Well, the Cards were the defending World Series champs. But from the start, there were the sights and sounds of a challenge from the East.
Breaking ball, it gets away. Here comes Schmidt. The Phillies win the game. Morgan sucks one deep right field. Out of here, Joe Morgan. Second home run of the game. What a birthday celebration for Joe.
Swing a long drive. Deep left field. Grand slam. The Phillies have won the game. Unbelievable.
With a true flair for drama, the Phillies changed managers in mid-July while in first place. New skipper Paul Owens led his troops through a torrid September, and the best finish in club history led to a clinching party in Wrigley Field.
Slammed to left field, and a great grab by Greg Gross, and the Phillies have won the National League East.
It was their 5th division title in 8 years, perhaps the most surprising and therefore the sweetest of all. Next stop, Dodger Stadium, where the Dodgers stood in the way of another trip to the World Series.
Get out of here.
Get up, get up. Attaboy, hubby.
Mike Schmidt's first inning homer provided the only run of the first game, and the Phillies took the upper hand in the best-of-5 series. The message was coming in loud and clear at the bench, and Gary Matthews, on his way to a Series MVP award, moved the Phils to within 1 game of the Flyers. Matthews was clearly in charge now, and his first inning homer in Game 4 gave the Phils a lead that grew to 7-2 before being entrusted to Al Holland. It was a 4-game rout of the Dodgers that gave the Phillies their 4th pennant ever and a chance to shout, "Please did it." But there was little time to savor it, for the Baltimore Orioles were waiting just down the pike. Having defied the experts in just getting there, the Phils were loose in starting the series, and an old bet of the Fall Classic got things going with a bang. The 4th postseason homer in Joe Morgan's great career tied the score at 1. Then Gary Maddox delivered the game winner. The Phils' 2-1 win in the series opener was not much of a portent. It was all downhill from there, as the Orioles won 4 straight to take home the series crown. Still, even this frustrating ending couldn't detract from the memories of an historic season. The last as a Philly for Peter Edward Rose. It was not just coincidence that in Rose's 5 seasons with the Phils, the team won as many pennants as it had in the 96 previous years. His unquenchable spirit, his undeniable will to win left an indelible mark on Phillies baseball. And who can forget that August evening in 1981 when he delivered a hit for the A's?
The strike one, Mr. Rose. Bouncing the hole, there it is.
Of course, milestones were just stepping stones for Rose in those days. But in breaking Stan Musial's National League hit record, the 40-year-old Rose solidified his place as a part of American folklore and earned a call from an old baseball fan in Washington.
One moment, sir. Mr. Rose, one moment, please.
Okay. I waited 19 years. I can wait another minute or so.
Who's speaking, please?
Pete Rose.
One moment, sir.
Good thing there ain't a missile on the way. I kept picking up, and this guy kept saying, Mr. Reagan's on the line, and I said, hello. And he said, hi, this is Ronald Reagan. I said, hi, how you doing? And everybody got a big kick out of it. What the hell was I supposed to say?
Hello.
Hello.
Pete Rose?
Yes, sir.
This is Ronald Reagan.
How you doing?
Well,
It was nice of him to take time to call me, and I appreciated that. Okay, nice talking to you.
congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
But Rose would not say farewell to baseball until he became the hittingest player of all time. And after rejoining the Cincinnati Reds, he did indeed crack Ty Cobb's mark, even further reminding Phillies fans how lucky they were to have had him in Phil's pinstripes. In a fitting tribute, P. Rose was picked as the first baseman on the Phillies Centennial team. Joining Rose among the fans' favorites was Manny Trio, who came from the Cubs in '79. Went on to win the MVP award in the next year's League Championship Series. Trio's real brilliance was at second base, where he won 3 Gold Gloves and set big league marks for most games and chances without an error. Larry Boa was the other half of the double-play duo, the pesky shortstop who for 12 years made the spectacular play look routine. Alongside the fiery Boa was the imperturbable Mike Schmidt, not just the Phillies' top third baseman, but perhaps the best the game has ever known. For his rare combination of defensive genius and home run prowess, Schmidt was singled out as the greatest Phillies player ever. Now that's a familiar face. Could it be a young Richie Ashburn? Sure enough. And there's no question Whitey belongs in the Phillies Centennial team outfield. Also deserving mention was Gary Maddox, who played center field with uncommon flair. Gary Lee's zest won him 8 Gold Gloves and a special place in the hearts of Phillies fans. A penchant for the long ball earned whiz kid Del Ennis the last spot in this exclusive outfield. Ennis would be the Phillies' all-time home run leader, if not for Mike Schmidt. Behind the plate, old reliable Bob Boone gave the Phillies nearly a decade of stalwart performance. As placid as was Boone, that's how volatile was the Phillies' all-time left-handed reliever, Tug McGraw. There was never a dull moment with Tugger on the mound, and Frank Edwin McGraw became the club's all-time leader in saves while winning the fans' undying affection. From the starboard side, Jim Constanti spelled relief like few ever had. In that glorious season of 1950, Constanti won 16 and saved 22, becoming the only reliever to win the National League MVP award. In that same year of the Whiz Kids, Robin Roberts won 20 games as a brash 23-year-old. And a quarter century later, Robbie was inducted into baseball's Hall of Fame, where he'll no doubt be joined someday by Steve Carlton. As the team's all-time winningest pitcher, Lefty rounds out the Phillies Centennial team. Sometimes it's only at the end, at the saddest moments that we're able to fully appreciate what came before.
The Steve Carlton era has ended in Philadelphia. The greatest left-hand pitcher in Phillies history and one of the greatest pitchers of all time will no longer be pitching. In Philadelphia.
In a revealing chat after the 1986 season, Carlton spoke candidly about the pain of his abrupt departure from the Phillies.
Being uprooted from Philadelphia after spending over 14 years there, and all the good memories, and it was that hurt a little bit.
But as time healed, Carlton allowed himself pleasant reflection on 14 illustrious seasons, in which he won 237 games and an unprecedented 4 Cy Young Awards. Phillies fans will never forget the 1972 trade that brought Lefty from St. Louis for Rick Wise. But though he won 27 games in his first season as a Philly, Lefty recalled that his first reaction to being traded was anything but delight.
I was panic-stricken. I didn't know what, going to a Phillies were in last place, that at that time. And the Cardinals were always competing for first place, and you think, oh my God, dread, there goes your career. So, but it turned out it was a blessing in disguise because I got off to a real good start, and I lost like 3 or 4 games in a row. Then I came back and won 15 games in a row, but pitching every fourth day. Once I hit that stride, I just made incredible pitches. I never threw a ball down the heart of the plate. I just constantly worked the corners, and it was just so easy, like pitching every fourth day, to have that rhythm, that pace, and control was just incredible.
Lefty's quiet confidence sprang from the supreme mastery of his craft. He is one of only 2 pitchers with more than 4,000 career strikeouts, thanks in large part to a pitch called the slider.
Nobody ever taught me the slider. When I started working with it, it was probably in 1968. I probably played around a little bit. Then the Cardinals went to play the Japanese teams in 1968. And we were over there, and Sadaharu had hit a home run off me. So I thought, well, I'm going to intimidate this guy. So I started throwing the slider, and I threw it right at him, right in his ribs. And he just, he flew back like this, and the ball came over the plate for a strike. The beauty of sports is in the doing, the excellence of doing. It frightens me in a way to just stop and think about, what you're doing, because you get trapped. I just rather nice going, put it aside, what do we got next? That's the way I look at sports or life in general, it's a constant battle of excellence and putting excellence behind you and striving further.
Steve Carlton's achievements went beyond what most athletes dare even dream about. Lefty made rooting for the Phillies special.
It was a great 14 years, and I would like to thank everybody for their support. Those are the years that you'll always remember. Those are great years. The fans being there and the cheering and all that. But just thank you for a great, 14 years.
But it's really the fans who ought to be grateful, for Steve Carlton gave them the chance to toast a once-in-a-lifetime performer and to tell their children that they were a part of this man's remarkable career. Then there's that other Phillies relic who just keeps rolling along. In 1987, he began his 15th big league season on the verge of the biggest milestone of his career. And finally, Phillies fans learned to appreciate Michael Jack Schmidt. As a raw 23-year-old rookie, Schmidt showed promise, belting 18 homers. But his 196 average belied the huge talents that would allow him to become one of only 3 National Leaguers ever to win 3 MVP awards. Along with his 10 Gold Glove awards, it all added up to a kind of charmed life.
Well, I wouldn't trade my life for anything. I wouldn't trade it to anybody for their life. If I had it to do all over again, I would wish it would happen the same way for me.
And who could blame him? More home run crowns than any player but Babe Ruth, and an MVP award in the only World Series the Phillies ever won.
There's no question whatsoever in my mind that the greatest thrill I've had as a baseball player was not necessarily something that happened on the field, but it was something that happened after that 6th game of the World Series. The next day, the parade and the reception that we got by the city of Philadelphia was an awesome sight. Finally winning one and seeing the sincere looks and the gratification on the fans of the some 7 million people that were standing along that parade route in Philadelphia, to me, was one of the most awesome sights I've ever experienced.
Well, they'd have never been there without him. And as he joined baseball's 500 home run club, it was time for Michael Jack Schmidt to take a bow.
To be remembered as a guy who had respect for all parts of the game of baseball, all phases of the game, throwing, running, hitting for power, hitting for a decent batting average. I want to be known as a guy that was a leader on my team, a guy that could be counted on to play every day. But I want to be remembered as a player who was a gamer, a guy that wanted to win at all costs every day.
The memories of the Phillies' first century were certainly not all joyous, but through the years they've given us a kind of anchor, a way of keeping track of our lives, as in Where Were You when Rose broke Musial's record, or when the Whiz Kids won the pennant.
Swinging a fly, very, very deep toward left field. Moving back, Abram, way back. He can't do it. It's a home run. A home run for Dick Sisler.
Striking out. A perfect game for Jim Ray. Here come his teammate. Oh, what a happy scene for the Phils and Jim Ray.
Here's the 3-2 pitch. Swing a line drive, he did it! Vukovic made the draw, Wise has done it! A no-hit, no-run game!
The wind-up by Ruthven. The 3-2 pitch. Here's a punch shot to center field. Maddox racing over. He catches the ball. Phillies win the pennant. The Phillies have won the pennant. The Phillies win the ball game 8-7. They go to the World Series for the first time in 30 years.
It's moments like these that we cherish, that make us feel a touch more alive. No one ever said rooting for the Phillies was easy, but then again, it's hard to imagine our city without them. As part of the Centennial celebration, Phillies artifacts were collected and placed in a time capsule. But each of us has our own treasure chest full of Phillies memories, which is what this celebration is all about. When the Phillies were finally crowned the champions of baseball, more than 1 million people turned out to share the moment. It took nearly a century to get there, but I think we'd all agree it was well worth the wait.